In The Recruit, we get introduced to Owen Hendricks. He's 2 days into his job at the CIA. He's formerly a lawyer, but when he got the opportunity to join the CIA and just do cool stuff, he jumped at it. He's excited, but he's also very fidgety when he gets called into his boss's office for the first time. His boss, Walter, has no idea who he really is. He even gets his name wrong the first time, but he doesn't care. His first course of action is to send Owen to the Senate, because the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee is planning on reading a classified document at a public hearing. Owen's got to stop him, and it's not a suggestion. If Owen is incapable of stopping him, he's not going to have a job there. But when Owen tells him that he can't read the document, this senator, a guy named Senator Smoot, doesn't take it well. He starts killing the messenger, telling Owen that he's a dead man walking, it's his constitutional right to read that document. He's going to exercise that constitutional right, and he's even going to subpoena Owen for it. But right before he goes back into the hearing and proclaims that he is going to quote the document, Owen pitches him on the idea of leaking classified information. This will result in criminal action, but it'll also result in a nasty campaign video when he's up for re-election. At the end of this pitch, the senator decides not to read the document, keeping Owen employed at the CIA. When Owen returns to his office, he's surprised because there are two people sitting in it. Their names are Lester and Violet. They're his coworkers, and they're very, very intrusive as to what he was doing on Capitol Hill. But there is a reason why they were sitting there. They drop a bunch of files off on his desk. They tell him that they call them the crazies. It's basically anybody who mails the CIA and tries to blackmail them for anything. Because most of it is just a waste of time, they call them the graymails, not blackmail. Because every once in a while, there actually is some credibility in there. Somebody that actually does know something about the CIA, so they have to go and talk to this person, figure out what they know and what they want. It's now Owen's job as the low man on the totem pole to sift through all of that junk and try to find out if any of it is credible. None of this is what Owen thought it would be when he joined the CIA. Because of this, it's going to be a really long night for Owen. He decides to go grab some coffee, and he runs into another coworker. This one's a lawyer just like him, and his name is Janis Ferber. What a name, what a guy. He is wired. That's because he's a lawyer for a special operations group that is terrorizing his life. They want to greenlight a mission, and he wants to stop them, and because of that, he hasn't left the office in 3 days. He's on edge. His advice to Owen is get out before the ink dries on your paperwork. He's not the friendliest guy, but he's also the only guy in the building when Owen runs into what he thinks is a credible graymail. It's from a woman named Max Meladze. She's in prison in Phoenix, and she's claiming that if they don't get her out, she's going to spill agency secrets on Shelby Shaw, P.W. Butcher, and much more. None of that makes any sense to Owen, but it sounds like it might be real, so he has to go find out if any of this rings a bell with anybody. Owen quickly looks up what Max was arrested for, which was a pretty brutal murder in Phoenix, and then he goes and finds Janis. Janis has to be convinced to help him out. In return for answering questions, Owen's going to give Janis some of his roommates' Adderall, but he does get the answers ultimately. P.W. Butcher is a cryptonym. It's an agency code name for a clandestine operation. The first two letters, P.W., are the country code where the operation's taking place, and Butcher is the actual code name. He also tells Owen that there's no way an asset should know any agency cryptonym. Because of that, Owen thinks that this might be the real deal. And even though Janis tells him to scrap it, he goes down the rabbit hole anyway. Janis points him in the direction of somebody who can answer who P.W. Butcher is, means, any of that. And this guy tells Owen that P.W. is the country code for Belarus. And Butcher is the code name for an operation in Belarus back in 2009. And as for Shelby Shaw, that's a pseudonym for a DO officer. That DO officer just happened to operate in Belarus at that time. This leads even more credibility to this graymail. Eventually, the guy that's helping Owen out asks, what is this about? And when Owen fills him in on the graymail issue, the guy gets really spooked, saying there's no way anyone outside of the agency should know a classified agency cryptonym and an officer pseudonym. What it means is Meladze could be a hip pocket asset. There wouldn't be a file on her, and there'd be no way to ID her case officer. But the fact that there is no file on Meladze, and all the information that she already knows, it leads Owen to his boss, Walter Nyland's desk. Owen fills his boss on everything he knows so far, and that includes the actual name of Shelby Shaw. Selby Shaw's real name is Dawn Gilbane. She's currently at an agency black site in Yemen. Nyland tells Owen to keep going with this investigation, and then he calls Lester and Violet in and informs them that they'll pick up on the slack of Owen's workload. And that doesn't really sit well with Owen's new coworkers. They don't really like that. They think Owen just made them look bad. And Owen reminds them that they made themselves look bad by giving him their workload in the first place. Owen then fills Lester and Violet in on what's going on. But the question he has is, how exactly is he going to get to Yemen? He feels like he has to go to Yemen because that's where he's going to get the answers he needs. So when he asks Violet and Lester how he gets to Yemen, their response is, well, you travel coach, you rent an economy car, and you keep the receipts. It's a little bit surprising that this is the way the CIA operates, but after all, it's Owen's third day on the job. He doesn't know any better. He heads home to Pack, where he finds his roommate, Terrence, and his ex-girlfriend Hannah playing flip cup. Even though Hannah's his ex-girlfriend, they have a really good relationship still. She's no longer sleeping in Owen's bed, but she still does live in the apartment. He starts packing, they ask what he's doing, and he loves the fact that he gets to tell them it's classified. As he's packing, Hannah tells him that his mom called her. Owen never told his mom that they aren't dating. And that's when Owen says, well, I haven't talked to her in 6 months. Not only does she not know we're not dating anymore, but she also doesn't know I work for the CIA. He then quickly changes the topic because he does not want to talk about the relationship with him and his mom. The next day, Owen hops on a plane, gets to Yemen, gets to the black site, but he's not greeted with the warm welcome he thought. In fact, they beat the crap out of him, chaining him up and interrogating him. He thinks he gets a break when he sees a woman come in because he knows that she must be Dawn, but she doesn't give him a break. They don't buy his story at all. The fact that a CIA operative just happened to show up at a black site with no previous warning whatsoever, it's fishy. Dawn especially doesn't believe the fact that he just wants to talk about an old op. He flew all the way to Yemen just for that. But the thing that really makes Dawn feel like Owen's full of it is his passport. It's blue. It's not black. She tells him that if he really worked for the CIA, they would have offered him a black passport, which gives diplomatic immunity. Dawn is convinced that Owen is there to investigate them, which makes him a hostile. Without the diplomatic passport, the Yemeni secret police are just going to arrest him for spying and then shoot him in the head. With a black passport, he would have just gotten deported. It's at this moment that he realizes that Lester and Violet really put him in a bad spot with this, not giving him any prior information on what he should expect. Dawn has her goons sit Owen down, and then she starts really interrogating him, pulling out pliers and threatening to pull off his fingernails if he doesn't give her the answer she wants. She's not very nice about it. She doesn't even give him an opportunity to explain himself. She rips a fingernail off, and that's when Owen starts screaming about the graymail. He tells her that it's his first week on the job. He got recruited in law school. He's got a pathological need for stimulation. It's probably because his dad got blown up in Afghanistan. His mom never got over it. He's just been running away from it his entire life. So when this opportunity showed up, he said, yeah, okay. Might even make my dad proud. It's at this moment when she finally starts to believe him. He fills her in on P.W. Butcher and Max, and she remembers a little bit of that mission, but not a ton. It was back in 2009. Dawn tells him that she never met Meladze, but she does remember her. What she really remembers was she was a pretty valuable asset. She was an upper-level player of the Belarus chapter of the Russian Mafia. Alex had serious connections inside Russian intelligence. As for her handler, Dawn doesn't remember, but she does confirm that Alex was a big deal. And the fact that somebody would hip pocket a girl like that should scare the crap out of anybody. They then patch up their initial meeting, the whole fingernail debacle. She gives him some advice on how to handle working at the CIA, and then he's back to America, banged up and battered. As soon as he touches back down in the States and finally gets in his own bed, he gets a call from Nyland asking, "Where the hell are you?" He rushes into the office, and before he meets with Walter, he sees both Lester and Violet and tells them that if either one of them try to torpedo him again, they're going to have a problem. He then heads up and meets with Nyland, and Nyland yells at him for going to Yemen. He never told him to go to Yemen. He just told him to continue on with the case. Owen defends his actions by saying he felt like it was the necessary next step, and also that Nyland seemed like the kind of guy who would like that initiative. His intuition was right. Nyland does like that kind of initiative. He then gives him the okay to go to Phoenix and talk to Meladze. And before he meets with Max, he asks one of the officers about her. She's being held without bail, but that's because of the nature of the crime. She murdered a trucking guy named Salvatore Quitney. Phoenix PD thinks Meladze was using his trucks to run product. A short while later, he gets his one-on-one with Max Meladze. She can tell that he is fresh at his job, and she uses this to her advantage. She's able to get details out of him that he wasn't expecting to give her. For example, he doesn't reveal Dawn's name or her pseudonym, but he does reveal that he met with a female in Yemen. She's also able to discern from his questioning that he doesn't have a hard file on her, he has no idea who she is or what she knows. She tells him that she has classified CIA documents. A whole lot of documents. That's when Owen says, then give me those documents, and if you're telling the truth, then I'll help you. So she gives him the location of the documents, and they're in a storage locker. Instead of getting an escort, though, over to the storage facility, he goes alone because he wasn't willing to wait on the phone for the Phoenix division to pick up. Bad mistake. He's able to get the bag with the documents, but he's got company. 2 guys were staking out the storage facility, and they also want that bag. Owen has no idea who these guys are, and he traps himself in the storage locker with nowhere to go. Even though they have a gun, he plays it cool. Eventually, he says, okay, you guys can come in, but when he lifts up the storage locker door, he hits them with a walker and tries to flee, getting in his car and trying to drive away, but they shoot his tires out, and it leaves Owen running through a storage facility. It doesn't take long, though, before 2 guys catch up with him, and they've got him cornered. He has no choice but to give up the bag. They actually do him a favor, though, by opening it, because Meladze had booby-trapped that bag with acid. Whoever opened it got a whole face full of it. There was also no CIA documents in there, just a whole lot of money. Owen heads right back to the detention center and questions Meladze on it, and she admits to using him as an errand boy. As for the 2 guys that attacked him, they're rival competitors who think that money is theirs. When Owen threatens to take the money to the police, she says, no, you're not going to do that. I have all the leverage here, so you're going to drop it off in a trash can out back, and I'm going to have somebody pick it up. The reality is you have no idea who I am or what I'm capable of. That should scare the crap out of you. What should also scare the crap out of you is I spent the entire afternoon going through your social media. That was thanks to you giving me your real name. Now I know everything you've done since college. Every place you've lived, every woman you've dated, your friends, everything. This kicks off a pissing contest between the 2 of who knows more about the other. But when they finally zip up their flies and get done with the pissing contest, Alex tells them that she knows about dozens of top-secret CIA operations in Belarus and Russia involving incredibly well-connected people. Stuff the agency would do anything to keep a secret. She then instructs Owen to go back to Langley and make sure the number 1 priority is her murder charges dropped. And if anyone thinks it's easier just to kill her, a press release is going to go out detailing the minutia of decades worth of clandestine operations. She starts trying to manipulate Owen to give her an answer right on the spot, but he doesn't do that. He realizes that she needs him as much as he needs her. He starts to walk out, and that puts pressure on Meladze, who finally gives him some information. It's her handler's name. It's a guy named Not Bob. While that name means nothing to him, at least he's not going back to Langley empty-handed. Right before he does leave Phoenix, he stashes that money, but he doesn't put it in a trash can, putting it instead what looks like a power box. On the flight home, he deletes everything on his social media, and then when he gets back to Langley, the first person he seeks out is Janice, asking him about Not Bob. And Janice knows exactly who Not Bob is. In fact, he tells Owen everybody knows who Not Bob is. He's a legendary operative inside the agency. He ran the most dangerous op in history and then retired as a division chief. Owen then tells Janice that he got that name from Meladze, and Janice feels like he's lying, because assets don't know their case officers' real names. And they sure as hell wouldn't know an internal nickname. But as Owen points out, people keep saying she shouldn't know these things, but yet she knows these things. But the fact that she knows who Not Bob is a huge deal. Bigger than Owen could have imagined, because Not Bob isn't just some CIA officer. No. He's the chief of staff to the president. Owen's next stop is to do a debrief with Nyland. He doesn't tell him, though, about the whole Not Bob situation, just saying that after interviewing Alex, he feels that her threat is credible and it seeks further investigation. Owen then leaves Nyland's office, gets back to his own, and he's greeted with a surprise. It's a subpoena, the same one that the senator promised. After that reality hits him in the face, he decides to call Max up and tell her that they have a deal. In episode 2, Hannah wakes Owen up in the morning because she found the subpoena. She noticed something, that they spelled his name wrong, and he jokes that he thought because of that, he could skip it. But she hammers home just how serious the subpoena is, and how she's amazed that he's only been on the job for a week and he's managed to piss off this many people. They remind him that this is the CIA. This isn't just some class at Georgetown. He's not going to be able to walk in and ace a test. He listens to their advice, he sort of appreciates it, and then he asks Hannah for more Adderall. He then heads into work when he gets a phone call from Max. She's pissed because her associate went to go retrieve the money, but it wasn't there. Owen assures her that he did leave it where she told him to, even though that's a lie, and she knows it's a lie. She calls him out on it. Max then gets into the fact that she's still in prison, and Owen tells her, I'm working on it. This isn't easy. It's not a parking ticket. It's not exactly like I know what classified information you're threatening to reveal here. She reminds him, though, that it's probably not a smart idea to give out that information on an unsecured line, and then she hangs up on him. The first thing Owen does when he gets into work is he heads to the records department. He explains that he ran a name by clandestine services yesterday and nothing popped up, so he needs them to look in the archived files. He gives the guy Max's information, but since this is going to take a while, he heads up to his office and waits for a response. When he gets to the office, he's surprised because both Violet and Lester are waiting for him. They were snooping around his office before he got there. They give him some line of crap about how they're there to support him. It seems like he's in over his head, and they just want to help. Owen thanks him for the offer, and a short while later, everybody heads to the staff meeting. It's Owen's first staff meeting. He has no idea what to expect. In it, Nyland goes around and covertly asks everybody for an update on whatever they're working on. They speak as vague as possible until it comes to Owen. He doesn't give out a lot of information, but he gives out a little bit. And even a little bit is too much. He gets told quickly to knock that off. Nobody wants to be culpable for anything. They don't want to know what anyone's working on if they don't have to. That's why they keep it as vague as possible. So when Owen says something like the Russian mob, everybody pretty much gets up and walks out. With just Owen, Nyland, Lester, and Violet, Nyland asks him, do you have a plan for your asset? And Owen says, no, not yet, but I am working on it and I should have an answer pretty soon. He's really relying on the archives. Unfortunately, when he gets back to his office, he does have an answer from the archives, but it's the fact that it's come up empty. There's no archived information on Max Meladze. He's stumped, he needs some advice, and he heads to Giannis. He offers him Hannah's Adderall, but Giannis doesn't actually want it. So, Owen does a pretty bad job of threatening him, and eventually, Giannis just gives in. Owen asks why is it that he can't find any information on his asset. Giannis says, I don't know, man. Someone probably cleaned up their mess. And I'm telling you, you really shouldn't go down this road. If somebody like Not Bob finds out that you're poking around about their former asset, that's how you end up in a room with a tarp on the floor. He then tells Owen that what he needs is Max's hall file. It's rumored intelligence. It's not a physical file. It's gossip, things that were said in the halls of whatever station she was stationed at. So what Owen's going to have to do is find a case officer that was stationed with her that is willing to talk to him. The conversation between Giannis and Owen gets interrupted when Owen gets some disturbing news. Max Meladze got shanked in prison. She's not dead, she's in the infirmary, but it's definitely not a good sign. At first, Owen actually thinks that maybe the CIA did it, and he brings it up to Nyland, but Nyland gets offended at the accusation. Nyland's on edge because the senator that subpoenaed Owen is clearly trying to get Nyland to resign in disgrace. He doesn't want to have some scandal, so he commands Owen to get whatever it is he's got going under control. That's going to mean flying to Phoenix and meeting with Max again. Both Max and Owen bribe a guard to get some alone time so they can talk privately, and that's where Max tells Owen that the shanking was at the hands of Talco. Talco was the guy who came up on Owen in the storage unit, opened the bag, his face was completely burned by acid. Well, he's out for retribution. The bad news is he's going to carry on trying to kill Max. Owen then moves on to a question that's been bothering him. Why didn't Max just graymail the agency when she first got over? The way that Owen sees it, Max is exposed as a foreign asset. She can't go home. So she's keeping Owen in the dark because she thinks that if she can control the information that gets out, then she'll get to keep her duplicity a secret. She'll go back to her old life in Belarus. And if she exposes everything, then that door closes forever. But Max says, no, that's not it. Promises were made. I expect to be taken care of because that's what I was told. They then get back to the whole Talco trying to kill her situation, and she tells him that it's on him to negotiate a truce between the two. Get Talco off her back. Owen doesn't really think that's in his job description, but he also doesn't have much leverage in the situation. She does, however, give him something. It's a bit of insight. He brings up how he's subpoenaed by this senator who clearly hates his boss. And what Max tells him is, The senator doesn't actually want you to talk on the stand. He wants some dirt on your boss. Give him the dirt, the subpoena goes away. But a week into the job, Owen isn't willing to throw his boss under the bus just quite yet. Right before Owen leaves, Max tells him that she'll get word to Telco about a peace agreement. It's Owen's job to broker it, and then they can go from there. Owen leaves the prison, he checks into a crappy motel, and when he gets in his room, he calls up Violet. He's going to take her up on her offer to help out, even though Violet clearly has ulterior motives. What Owen needs help with is getting his graymail case moved into the federal system. That way they can protect Max a little bit better. Violet and Lester think this is the perfect opportunity to get somebody in close with Owen that they can use to spy on him. And the person they're going to use is a woman named Amelia. So Violet gets back on the phone and tells Owen about Amelia Salazar, and that maybe Amelia can help him out. And Owen says it sounds like a great idea and he can't wait to get in touch with her. After getting off the phone with Violet, Owen heads to the shady-looking pool at the motel, where there is a woman that clearly just wants to be left alone. She's eating chicken nuggets, but also simultaneously throwing them in the pool. She kind of looks distraught, and for whatever reason, Owen thinks it's the person I want to chat up. They start making a little bit of small talk, and what you learn about her is her dad was killed recently. That's why she's in town. She was really close to her dad, which is why she's not doing all that great. Owen can certainly relate with his dad dying in Afghanistan when Owen was just 12. Eventually, the night wraps up. Owen heads back to his room, and he's surprised because there's Telco. You didn't expect it this quickly. Telco just wants his money, and the good news is Owen knows exactly where it's stashed. Owen drives Telco over to the location of where he stashed the money. While he's doing so, he's trying to get intel on how Telco might know Max. And Telco tells Owen that Max created a niche business when she hit town. But she crossed the line, she took something that didn't belong to her. Telco warns Owen that if he's not careful, Max will betray him too. They then get to the location, Telco gets his money, and he heads off. Owen lets Max know that the deal was made. But even with this peace agreement in place, Max can't just take Telco's word for it. She heads to the infirmary. The woman who shanked her is also in the infirmary. She actually got the worst end of that fight. And Max whispers in her ear that she knows this woman has a daughter, and while she won't do anything to her daughter, she will have her entire family killed if she doesn't work as a double agent. What Max wants from her is that if Telco puts another hit on her, she wants to know about it. With a threat like that, and with how calm Max is delivering it, the woman has no choice but to agree. The next day, Owen flies home, and he's surprised because when he gets to his apartment, Hannah's just getting out of the shower. They didn't expect to see each other. After the initial shock of, what are you doing here? They start making small talk about how jobs are going. And then that segues into how Hannah's actually worried about him. She doesn't want to admit it, but she is. She's worried that he's making extreme choices, and the excuse that he always uses is he wants to prove his mother wrong. And what she's really worried about is that the CIA is going to amplify his worst instincts. She knows there are safer jobs that would pay Owen a fortune, but Owen points out that Hannah isn't happy doing that. She's miserable. That's when Hannah makes a joke about how the Senate misspelled his name in a subpoena, and the light bulb goes off in Owen's head. He races into work, heads to the archives, and explains to the guy that, yeah, they probably cleared Max Meladze's name, but they might not have cleared misspellings. Owen gives the guy a list of 100 ways you could misspell Max Meladze, and he wants to search them all. It's a long shot, but it just might bear fruit. He then heads upstairs while he waits for the results to meet with Amelia for the first time. He introduces himself, he shuts the door, but the meeting isn't exactly as he expected. Violet did, in fact, let Amelia know that he would be stopping by, but what Violet told Amelia was that Owen would be interested in dating. So Amelia tells Owen, I'm going to need romance. Not a lot, I don't have time for anything serious, but you're going to have to put in some effort if we're dating. Luckily, Owen's pretty quick thinking on his feet. He realizes that Amelia isn't going to help him for nothing, so he just goes along with it, agreeing to take her out to dinner whenever she wants, basically, playing along. He then gets into the real reason why he showed up, getting Max's case federal so that the charges could be dropped if need be. Amelia assures Owen that she'll get right on it, takes down Max's information, and sends Owen on his way. When he gets back to his office, the guy from Archives is waiting for him. While all of those names pretty much struck out, there was one that hit. It doesn't have a lot of information in it, but what it does have is a case officer's name that isn't redacted. At least it's something Owen can go on. He finds out that this case officer is stationed in Vienna, so he heads to Nyland's office and says, Sir, I gotta go there. This is a conversation you don't want to risk getting intercepted. Nyland gives him the okay to go, but does warn him to be careful this time. He tells Owen that Vienna is the espionage Olympics. It's where every foreign intelligence agency sends their all-stars, so you got to be on the lookout and high alert. Now that he got the clearance to go to Vienna, he's going to need his black passport. He heads to the proper channels to find out where he can get it, and he finds out that it was delivered 5 days ago. And that's news to him. There's only been 3 people that have been in his office in those 5 days. Himself, Violet, and Lester. So he decides to go snooping through their office to find it. They walk in, see what he's doing, start questioning him, and that's when he locates his black passport under a bunch of files. Violet lies and says it must have been delivered by mistake, but it was clearly not a mistake. Now that he clearly caught them lying and stealing his passport, he needs something from them, setting up an identity that he can use in Vienna. They tell him how to set one up. He's going to be going to Vienna as a diplomat. Specifically, he's going as a temporary legal attaché for the State Department. All he has to do is walk into the lobby and someone will hand him his key. So that's exactly what Owen does. Walk into the lobby, making eye contact because he's not sure who's going to hand him his key. And eventually somebody walks up, hands him a key, and a note on where to meet. When he gets settled into his room, he heads to the location of where he's going to have this meeting. But Nyland was right. Owen doesn't even realize he's being watched closely. He gets a phone call from the case officer that he's supposed to meet who warns him that he is being followed, and they have to go to the embassy to talk, privately. He starts questioning this case officer, who's named Xander, on his interactions in Belarus. Owen then moves into asking Xander if he's familiar with the name Max Meladze. While Xander is very familiar with Max Meladze, and we'll get into that in a second, he plays it off like he only heard of her once or twice. When Owen explains that he's trying to find Max's Hall file, Xander sits back and tells Owen Belarus and Russia are mafia states. The mob provides the muscle for whatever the political elites ask for. Keeping those elites happy was Max's specialty. That is why she was such a valuable asset for the U.S. Owen then asks about who Max's handler was, and Xander says she was between handlers. That's not normal, but according to Xander, when he first arrived, Max's handler had dropped dead of a heart attack. Shortly after that, Max left Belarus. She just pissed off the wrong person in the mob. It takes a little bit for Owen to get this information out of Xander, but Xander does eventually tell Owen that what he heard was that she was able to run her own network. This is completely shocking to Owen. Max didn't even have a hard file. But if this information is true, it means she knows the identities of most, if not all, of the spies in Belarus and Russia. Last question that Owen has for Xander is who set Max up in the United States, and Xander lies and says he has no idea. It was actually him. He's the one who set Max up 5 years ago. Xander tries playing it off like he barely knew Max, and Owen actually catches him in a lie. He's suspicious of Xander. He feels like Xander knows Max way better than he's playing it off. The next day, as Owen is heading out of his hotel back to the airport, he calls Max up in a little victory lap, telling her, "I know what you're trying to expose." Max asks Owen, "Who did you meet with? Because the secrets I know are worth killing for." But Owen's not about to just give up that name. Owen then realizes that the cab that he got into isn't exactly a cab. The driver's license that's posted is of an old man, but the cab driver's a woman. He starts getting nervous, and when he tells Max this, she tells him that it's an assassin. Owen's going to have to kill this person or he's going to get killed himself. The idea of killing anybody makes Owen very uncomfortable, but Max was right. The woman pulls out a gun, tries to kill Owen, and he chokes her with her seatbelt. He doesn't kill her, but he is able to get away. Eventually, though, this assassin, along with another one, corner Owen on the street, and he has no choice but to jump in a river to get away. In episode 3, Owen swims down the river, finds an embankment that he can climb out of, sees a couple people, and starts asking them for directions, but realizes, wait, I recognize you guys. I recognize all of you guys from the hotel. He realized that this must be what Nyland was talking about. All 3 of them joke with him that they're legal attachés, which is supposed to be what Owen's cover is. But he tells them, no, I'm actually a lawyer. Their question to him is, well, then why did someone try to kill you if that's the case? And he says, I never said somebody tried to kill me. I said I got mugged and I jumped into the river. Owen then gives a description of these 2 people that, quote, mugged him. And right away, the 3, quote, legal attachés know exactly who they are. They're still pretty reluctant to believe he's a lawyer until he asks for directions on the way back to the hotel. One of them shakes her head and says, man, you really do suck at counterintelligence. You can't go back to your hotel. That'll give those two assassins another shot at killing you. That's something that Owen hadn't even thought of. But he's dripping wet in clothes. He has to change. He runs to a store, grabs a sweatshirt, and then uses their phone to call up Max. He asks Max who tried to kill him, thinking that maybe she would have an idea, and she asks them, well, who did you meet with? It's probably them. Owen's not ready, though, to just give her more information that she can use against them. Max gets on edge pretty quickly, and when Owen tries to calm her down by saying if everything goes well at the hearing, she'll be transferred to a federal facility that day, she gets even more angry, because the demand wasn't to go to a federal facility, it was to be released. She tells him that if she's not out of there in 2 days, she's going to start naming names, and then she hangs up. Shortly after that, Owen hops on a plane and heads back to the United States. He doesn't even stop at his apartment to change. He heads straight into the office to meet with Nylan. When Nylan sees the state that he's in, he actually feels bad for him. He offers him a fruit roll-up, saying, my kids love these. And it turns out Nylan has 5 kids, so that guy gets to work in and outside of the office. Owen then gives a quick update on what he learned in Vienna, how Max does in fact know a lot, and Nylan tells him to go down and make sure nothing goes wrong at the hearing. After the meeting with Nylan, he finally has a chance to go home and relax for a little bit. As he's heading to his car in the parking lot, he runs into Lester. Lately, Owen's been feeling super paranoid, like somebody's out to get him or everybody's out to get him. He hops into Lester's car and asks, is this normal? And Lester says, yeah, basically. Nothing's ever what it seems at the agency. Everybody's out to get you. Owen follows up by asking if anybody from the CIA would ever kill him, and Lester says, well, not on U.S. soil. That's too much paperwork. But they can search your apartment for any reason at any time. With this fresh in his mind, when he arrives home and sees a little bit of a messy apartment, he immediately freaks out, thinking that his apartment was turned. But then he sees that Hannah and Terrence are fine, and it was just they had a party. That's it. After he starts to relax about the fact that his apartment wasn't searched by the CIA, he sees the subpoena note and he says aloud, I gotta take care of this today. That's when Terrence says, oh, I forgot to tell you, I know someone named Sarah and she works in Senator Smoot's office. She's a staffer. She's actually the contact name on your subpoena. Believe it or not, that girl drinks like a fish. That gives Owen an idea. He asks Terrence, hey, can you text Sarah and ask her if she wants to go out for drinks? I'll tag along and try to charm her into nixing this subpoena. Terrence says, sure, and they're going to meet the next night. Owen, though, has to get to the airport because he's got to get to Phoenix to deal with Max's case. So he throws on one of his last remaining suits and flies out. 5 hours later, he arrives in court, but he's surprised, though, because right before it starts, he sees Kelly, the girl from the motel, standing outside, waiting to go in. He's a little confused because he wasn't expecting to see her here. And that's when she tells him, well, I'm here because of something that happened to my dad. He was murdered. It's at that moment that Owen realizes Kelly's dad was murdered by Max. He doesn't tell Kelly. In fact, he actually lies to her by telling her, I'm just here to file a motion upstairs. He waits for Kelly to go inside, and then he follows a little bit later, just sitting in the back. And court is quite a scene, because when Kelly finds out that Max is not going to trial, she flips out. Doesn't change anything. The judge signs off on the government taking over Max's case. Seems like everything has gone great until Max gets up, looks at Kelly and says, I'm sorry for your loss, but your father was a piece of crap. That causes Kelly to lunge at Max. It's so bad Kelly has to be restrained. So they're going to send Max to a federal detention center. And right before they do, Owen gets a chance to meet with her. The first thing he does is give her a little bit of advice, not to provoke the grieving daughter. If Max gets killed, all of this goes out the window. Max doesn't even pay that advice any mind, just telling Owen that she needs $500 in her commissary account. Now that she's changing prisons, she's losing her burner phone. She needs to buy a new one. Owen reluctantly agrees to this and then heads back to the motel. As he's heading over, he decides to call up Amelia and schedule that date. It's ironic because Violet is standing in front of Amelia when she gets his phone call, trying to tell Amelia that when she does have this date, if she gets any information that maybe Violet can use against Owen, to pass it along. Amelia assures Violet that she will, but when Owen calls, she doesn't tell Violet that Owen's on the phone, actually lying to her, saying it's somebody else. With Violet out of the room, Owen and Amelia set up plans to grab drinks when Owen flies back later that night. Owen does feel bad for Kelly, though, and with a few hours before his flight, he swings by the motel to check up on her. Luckily for him, she's sitting outside just like she was the first time they met. Kelly tells Owen that the cops claim her dad was doing criminal stuff with Max, but she's convinced they're wrong. After saying he's sorry for what happened to her dad, he gets ready to fly back out. Meanwhile, Max is transferred to that federal prison. The first thing she does when she arrives is ask her roommate, where can I get a burner phone? Her roommate points her in the direction of a woman named Cora. And just as fate would have it, Max knows Cora. She walks up and tells her, I need a burner phone with international minutes. But Cora isn't exactly thrilled to see Max. She blames Max for even being in there. Because 3 years ago, Cora came to Max as Max ran a sort of B&B for people looking to stay away from the police. You could only stay 2 weeks at the most. And while Max didn't exactly have a sunny disposition, Cora did. She was friendly. She was personable. And she was able to break through Max's hard exterior. In short time, these two developed a little bit of a friendship. They talked about life, how Max can't really go home. They even talked about Max's daughter, who she lost. Max liked Cora so much that she broke her 2-week rule. She would only let guests stay for 2 weeks, but she let Cora stay an extra week, and that's when things turned south. Cora met a guy and invited him back to the apartment, which was a no-no, completely against the rules. And not only that, but this guy was a complete and absolute scumbag. There was no bigger example of this than Cora's black eye, which he gave her. When Max saw him, she demanded that not only he leave, but Cora leave, and gave them an hour to pack up. When Max came back an hour later, the whole place was trashed, and there's Cora, bloodied, beaten, and in really, really bad shape. In order to save her life, Max took her to the hospital. Because she was wanted by the feds, it didn't take long for them to find her and put her in jail. That's why Cora blames Max for what happened. Cora doesn't know, though, that Max is in jail because a little while after that incident, as Max was filling up at a truck stop, she saw the guy. She walked up to him. He didn't recognize her at first, but then he did. And that's when she beat the hell out of him, bashing his head in with a tire iron. At the time of the attack, Sarah's dad was holding a bag full of money. Even though Sarah doesn't think her dad was into some shady stuff, he clearly was. Max didn't know this, but when she checked the bag and saw the money, she took off with it. So that was the thing that she took that didn't belong to her. When Max sees Cora for the first time in years, she doesn't tell her any of this. She's pretty cold to her, actually. They agree on a price, and Cora says, all right, but we're not friends. And Max just says, we never were, and walks away. So now Max Meladze has a phone, and she can get in touch with whoever she wants in jail. That includes Owen, who's arrived back in D.C. and heads straight to Amelia's place to pick her up. She's not a huge fan of his outfit, so she lends him one of the many men's suits that she has. Yeah, she's a little bit of a freak, in a good way, kind of. And then, by sheer accident, Owen sees what Amelia really wants to do with her career. She's bored out of her mind doing what she's doing. She wants to be an analyst for TV news. So she practices every single night in her house, hoping that one day she can land an analyst role. Tonight, though, she's just hoping to land some of Owen. So the two head off to dinner. They start chatting. And while they try to keep work out of it, it's kind of impossible. Owen does have a few questions for her. The biggest one being, how do you get the feds to drop a murder case? Amelia tells Owen in order to do that, you have to go to the Attorney General of the United States. He's the only one that can sign off on it. She tells Owen just to send his office an email saying it's a priority one and someone will reach out. They then get a little bit of a surprise because Hannah just so happens to be at the same restaurant, and she's on a date. They try to keep it really cordial, they try to keep it friendly, but it definitely is a little bit awkward. So much so that Amelia right away can tell the two dated. Owen explains the situation and Amelia's cool with it. She just wants his undivided attention. The two continue to have dinner, and when it wraps up, they're even kissing outside when Hannah walks out and sees it. Owen, though, wasn't doing this to try to make her jealous. He didn't even know she was there. He invites Amelia out to the bar because he still has to meet with Terrence and that staffer from Senator Smoot's office. But instead of coming, Amelia gets so turned off that he made other plans that night that she just goes home on her own. That's when Owen turns around and sees that Hannah is standing there, alone. Owen asks Hannah if she wants to head to the bar with him and meet up with Terrence, but she says, no, I gotta get up early. So Owen heads over to the bar solo. He meets up with Terrence, and sure enough, he has delivered the staffer from Senator Smoot's office, and as advertised, she does in fact drink like a fish. Right away, she tells Owen, I'm here to party, I'm not here to talk about your subpoena. But Owen persists. So she tells Owen, just give Smoot dirt on your boss, enough to destroy him. Then the subpoena will go away. She lays out exactly what will happen if the subpoena goes through, how he'll have to hand over every single thing he's doing that requires classification. And if there's anything that he's working on that's remotely shady, they'll completely blow it up on live TV. It doesn't really seem like Owen has a ton of options here. And right after she explains this, speak of the devil, Nyland calls Owen, demanding that he get in there right away. They're heading to Lebanon. By they, I don't mean Owen and Nyland. No, I mean Owen and Lester. Lester has a contact over in Lebanon, a mercenary, complete and total badass, but also a deadbeat dad. He owes a lot of back child support, and he hasn't paid for it. He also has a big mouth that revealed to his ex-wife a lot of secrets regarding national security. She's now threatening to blow the lid off all of it if she doesn't get her child support. Lester has tried to tiptoe around the issue, asking nicely, but none of that's working. So Nyland is sending both Lester and Owen over to Lebanon to deal with the matter. On the way over to the airport, Owen gets a phone call from Max. He asks Max what he can expect in Lebanon, but she quickly changed the topic to what the guy in Vienna's name was, the guy he met with. Owen is super reluctant to do that, but Max pleads her case of why she needs to know and why he can trust her. So Owen describes the guy, and right away, Max knows exactly who he's talking about. Xander. She tells Owen, I call that guy Pastry King, and I have a lot of dirt on him. She then quickly goes over what he can expect in Lebanon. He hangs up, gets to the airport, and hops on the flight with Lester. Lester isn't too happy that he has to do this with Owen. He tells Owen, you asked earlier if anybody at the agency will try to kill you. Well, the guy we're going to visit, Dave, he's the hitman they call to get it done. Owen then changed the subject to his meeting in Lebanon. He asks Lester if he knows about Xander, and Lester says, I just know he's super ambitious. He's got his eyes on the Moscow station, which is the holy grail of assignments, but one blemish on your record, you can kiss that post goodbye. When Lester finds out that Xander is connected to the graymail case, he tells Owen that right there is just the sort of thing that can torpedo him. Hours and hours later, the two arrive in Lebanon. They head over to the hotel, but they're not the only ones in the room, because Dave, the hitman, is also there along with two members of his team. He found out they were flying in, and he decided to greet the two at the hotel that they were staying at. Dave is as advertised. He's very intimidating. He also takes it super well when they ask him to sign a piece of paper that says that they will garnish his wages in order to get his ex-wife the child support she needs. He takes the form and tells him, I'm just going to go back, read it, and bring it back signed. As Lester and Owen wait for Dave to bring back the signed form so they can go home, they grab dinner. While making chit-chat, Lester tells Owen how him and Violet met, because clearly there's a real connection there. Violet was the one that convinced Lester to join the general counsel's office. He met her at an army base in Germany. She was there as a JAG. She was tired of the army. She convinced Lester that being a lawyer was the only skill worth having in the CIA. So she helped him with online law school. He helped her learn about the agency. But he also doesn't seem all that happy with the career. Maybe it was the alcohol talking, but Lester starts complaining to Owen about how he's this golden boy. Really, it's jealousy. First week on the job, he got sent to the Senate and he found this graymail case. But Owen says, no, man, I'm just good at what I do. And Lester doesn't see it like that. He thinks Owen's just lucky. Doesn't seem like there's really any hard feelings, though. The two finish their meal. They head up to bed. But right before they settle down for the night, there's a knock at the door, and somebody left the papers from Dave. Although he didn't exactly sign it. And it's going to force both Owen and Lester to head over to Dave's hideout and convince him to sign it the next day. That's really where Lester sees Owen's skill set. Dave tries to convince the two to leave without a signature, but Owen convinces him because he lays out exactly what would happen to Dave if he doesn't sign it. How he would be thrown in jail, how he would be blacklisted, how he would never work another day in his life. Well, Dave doesn't want to sign the piece of paper. The scenario that Owen lays out doesn't really give him a choice. So he reluctantly puts his John Hancock on the piece of paper and sends Owen and Lester back to the United States. This trip did a lot for Owen and Lester in terms of bonding. Lester has a newfound respect for Owen. When they get back, it's pretty obvious to Violet that the two are now suddenly boys. But when they get back, Owen has an unexpected guest. It's the Attorney General. He didn't expect the Attorney General to actually show up in his office, but the Attorney General says, well, you did say it was a priority one. Because he doesn't want to waste the Attorney General's time, Owen quickly goes over what he had to talk to the Attorney General about, Max's murder case. All the Attorney General really cares about is the optics of letting a murder suspect go in an election year. But Owen hammers home just how much information she knows and just how dangerous it could be if she leaked that information. So it seems like the Attorney General is suddenly on board. But while Owen is trying his best to get Max out of prison while she has so much time to kill in prison, she decides to start trying to get some revenge. Now that she knows that Xander was the one that met with Owen in Vienna, she sends him a little gift. Xander is obsessed with pastries, so she looks up the top pastry place in Vienna, orders him a special cake that when he gets it, there's a note attached that says, "Got ya, motherfucker." Signed, Max. In episode 4, Owen is still riding high from his victory in Beirut. That's when a random guy comes up to him and slips him a random envelope telling him that it's an incident report from Office of Technical Services. The Office of Technical Services built an AI information device. Things got sideways. The guy doesn't really go into any description, just telling Owen, it's all in there. You can check it out. When he finally reads it, it's pretty disturbing. Technical Services built a torture robot. As it was doing a mock interrogation, it ripped a guy's arm off. Now they don't know what to do, legally. It's not like Owen knows what to do about it, so he heads into Nyland's office, where he's surprised to see that Nyland is talking to Dawn, the woman who ripped his fingernail off. Dawn hasn't shown up to chit-chat, though. She's calm about the Max Meladze case. She doesn't want the Attorney General to drop the federal charges. That's got CIA intervention written all over it. No, Max's release has to be clean. That's because Operations wants to insert her back into the Russian mob in Belarus as an asset. One of the reasons they want this is because Max was really close to a general who is now number 2 in charge. So putting Max back into the field would give them direct access to Russian intelligence. Dawn tells both Nyland and Owen that the deputy director is banking on her to get this done. And Nyland's okay with it, but he says, well, if that's the case, she's fully vetted. Paperwork this time. No more hip pocket assets. It's now Owen's job to get the Attorney General out of this and get Meladze freed by the book. Once Dawn leaves the room, that's when Owen fills Nyland in on this torture robot. Or at least he tries to. Nyland tells Owen that people like to slip them paperwork because they know that once they look at it, they can't unlook at it. They're culpable. Nyland can't believe that Owen was dumb enough to look at it and tells him, get out of here. Give it to Lester. Your priority is the graymail case. But Owen says, actually, I think Violet would be better for this. Owen should just Violet because Violet's been complaining ever since Owen and Lester got back that she wasn't the one that was chosen to go to Lebanon. She's been talking about wanting a challenge, so Owen thinks he's doing her a favor, but he's actually not. Not at all. When she eventually hunts Owen down, she tells him that no lawyer wants an AI case. And to Violet, Owen did it to sabotage her, not to help her out. Owen then heads to go meet with the Attorney General and tell him that they no longer need him. But before he can even get that out, the Attorney General tells him that there's an eyewitness to Max's case. It's making it a little more complicated. When Owen eventually does tell the Attorney General that he's no longer needed, the Attorney General doesn't take it well. He tells Owen, you wasted my time, so the next time you need a favor from the Justice Department, just punch yourself in the face instead. Owen quickly heads back into the office where he runs into Amelia, and word has already gotten to Amelia about Owen and the Attorney General's run-in on Capitol Hill. He starts telling Amelia that he could actually use her help with this and starts running it down, but that's when they hit Owen's office and he notices a note on the door that says his subpoena has been moved up to Monday. This is the first time that Amelia is hearing about the subpoena, so Owen quickly runs through what it is and why he was called to it. It then gets worse for Owen, because Amelia locked Owen's office door after she caught Dawn snooping through it. Owen gets really concerned about whether or not Dawn touched anything, whether she found anything, but Amelia gets his mind off the topic by reminding him that he owes her a date, and they agree to meet that night at 8 o'clock. He's got to get a move on, though, if he's going to make this date, because he has a flight out to Phoenix to talk to Max Meladze in person. He tells Max the plan is still to get her out, but the CIA wants to put her back in Belarus as an asset. Max isn't happy about this, though. She starts asking Owen who decided this from Operations. And when Owen won't tell her, she says it was Xander Goy, right? Owen gets really mad that Max even knows Xander Goy's name. He sternly tells her, I'm trying to help you and you're making it harder by going behind my back and doing these things. Did you reach out to him? And Max admits, yeah, I did. And maybe it came off a little hostile. Owen starts trying to wrap his mind around this. It's no coincidence that this is why Dawn showed up this morning. if Xander is actually behind all this. But what he can't figure out is, how is giving Max her old life back a form of payback? And Max tells him it's not, unless that plan's a lie. Owen tells Max about this hotshot general who she was friends with back in the day. And Max says, Owen, both things can be true. I mean, they could need me, but they also want to kill me. They then switch the topic to why getting Max out is more complicated, and Owen tells her about the eyewitness. Max asks Owen, who is this witness? And Owen says, I don't know, but I'm working on it to keep them quiet. Max mumbles that most people are quiet when they're dead, and Owen says, no, Max, you're not killing the witness. I will fix this. Don't go behind my back again. Owen then leaves Max, and right before his flight, he wants to go check on Kelly from afar. He drives by the motel. He starts texting her to see how she's doing, and she admits that she's a mess right now. As Owen is trying to make her feel better through text message, he gets a random phone call from somebody saying that they're a veterinarian and their bird is ready for pickup. Owen has no idea what this means, so he calls up Lester, and Lester explains that somebody sent him a flash cable to the regional office in Phoenix. It's something too sensitive to send over email. All Owen has to do is just drive over and pick it up. Lester does warn Owen, though, that these people in the regional office, they hate dealing with DC types. They have a real inferiority complex. And when Owen arrives at the regional office, he sees exactly what Lester was talking about. It's 3 people who look absolutely miserable and aren't happy to see him. But they give him the flash cable. And it wasn't important. It was from Violet. It says, eat an infinite number of dicks. That's because Violet blames Owen for being in this tech issue. It's worse than she previously thought. And now she's got to figure out how to get out of it so that her name isn't on a file that in 10 years' time gets unearthed and she gets her head put on a spike for. Now, the good news is later on, Violet, along with Lester's help, realized how to get out of this tech issue by simply never turning the robot off. That way they never have to file a report, and the case is solved. But Owen, meanwhile, is still dealing with the graymail case, and he suddenly gets an idea being in the regional office. Maybe these guys can help him get the name of the eyewitness. He gives them this impassioned speech about how their country needs them, and how they've always been underutilized sitting in this office, and maybe this is a way to get in the good graces of the people at DC by helping him. This speech ends up working, because one of the people does have a contact in the Phoenix PD, so she'll look into it and get back to him with a name. About an hour later, Owen's in the air, flying back to DC, and he arrives later that night. He walks into the apartment to find both Hannah and Terrence chatting about Terrence's relationship. He's going to be having a serious talk with his boyfriend about taking things to the next step. Terrence really likes this guy, but he's also extremely nervous about how this talk is going to go. Hannah, meanwhile, has to start getting ready for this gala that night that her parents are on the board of. It's called the Sea Life Society. It's a black tie event. A lot of bigwigs in the D.C. area are going to be there, and Owen has a pretty good idea of one bigwig that he wants to talk to. It's Senator Smoot. Luckily for Owen, Jeff, Hannah's new boyfriend, can't go. He's working. So Owen decides to go as her +1, although it does take a little bit of convincing. The first people that Owen and Hannah see when they arrive at the event are Hannah's parents, and they're not exactly thrilled to see Owen. I guess when Hannah and Owen dated back in Georgetown, her parents weren't big fans. They then head to the bar to talk about what Owen's plan is tonight. And it's pretty simple for Owen. Find the senator, win him over. That's it. Hannah, though, thinks that is a terrible plan. Tells Owen that you clearly don't belong here. It's actually a good thing. I grew up with these people. They're constantly measuring worth. Their own and everybody else's. This is one of the reasons why Smoot thinks you're a nobody that he can just bat around like a toy. So what is he going to think when he sees you at an exclusive VIP fundraiser? Owen slyly looks at Hannah and says, yeah, he'll be confused, but he'll also have to reevaluate how much he can mess with me. This totally works, because when they run into Smoot, he's very, very confused on what Owen is even doing there. It does help that Hannah mentions who her parents are, because Smoot recognizes their names. They're huge donors to his campaign. By the time Hannah and Owen leave Smoot behind, Smoot calls up one of his underlings and says, who the hell is this kid? And in order to actually get proper information on him, he's not going to be able to have that hearing on Monday. Hannah and Owen continue to have fun at the party, dancing it up. They're having a blast. When they take a break, they go to the bathroom, fixing themselves up in the mirror, and they're talking about what they're going to do when they leave. They then get really close to kissing, though, and it's Owen who pulls back. He doesn't want to make things awkward. After all, he is meeting with Amelia that night. She's got Jeff. Well, the intention wasn't to make it awkward, it becomes awkward. Hannah takes an Uber home, and Owen leaves by himself. And while he didn't call an Uber, he does kind of get a ride. Dawn picks him up, unsolicited. She tells Owen, "You're a wild card, and you didn't exactly instill confidence in Yemen, so I'm doing my due diligence on you." She then stops the car, looks at him, and says, "Why are you a lawyer? You've got everything that screams operations. Why do you want to be the guy that everybody hates at work when you can be one of the cool kids?" And Owen shoots back, "It's because I despise the cool kids. They used to beat me up in school. But I get it. Having a lawyer looking over your shoulder makes your job exponentially harder. And to that, I say tough noogies." Dawn kicks him out of her car because she has nothing left to talk to him about. Owen heads over to Amelia's, and they hook up that night. And he decides to sleep over. But he's awoken in the middle of the night by his friends in Phoenix. They've found his witness, but it comes with some bad news. The witness has been offered witness protection in exchange for his testimony, and he's giving an on-camera statement in 12 hours. After that, this guy's gone for good, so Owen has 12 hours to figure out how he's going to stop this guy. He gets up to get Amelia's advice, and Amelia is currently practicing being an analyst, so she forces Owen to play the role of Anderson Cooper. Once again, we don't kink shame on this channel. Owen does do a pretty good job of playing the Anderson Cooper role while getting her expertise, but finally he just breaks character. But Amelia does help him out. She tells him that the CIA has their own version of witness protection. I mean, technically it's retired assets, but it's basically the same thing. This gives Owen the idea of putting the witness in the CIA relocation program, but the whole time he's just going to think he's a witness protection. So with not a lot of time, Owen flies to Phoenix and goes to this guy's address to play the part, but also to get him out of there. At first, the witness, who's named Danny, is confused because he was under the assumption he was going downtown to give his witness statement. But Owen says, "No, that's not going to be the case. Your life is in danger. We need to get it right now." Little does Owen know how real that statement actually is. Owen plans on getting the statement on camera and then having his friends in the regional office pick him up and relocate him. Just as expected, the witness tabs Max Meladze as the murderer. But then, this poor guy's trailer is shot up because Max didn't follow Owen's advice. With the help of Cora, she also was able to find out who this witness was, and she hired a hitman to kill him. Owen's able to fight this guy off and barricade himself, along with the witness, in the bathroom. He FaceTimes Max because he's very confused on why this guy is wielding a knife trying to kill him, and Max admits, "Yeah, I did hire somebody, but this guy doesn't even actually know I exist. It's not like I can have him step down. Sorry, you're going to have to get out of this one yourself." With a little bit of quick thinking, Owen is able to do that by ripping the toilet out and sneaking out underneath, getting in the car, and getting the hell out of there. Now that the witness isn't a problem anymore, they have no choice but to drop the charges and let Max walk free. As Owen is getting an attaboy on the phone from Nyland for getting the job done, he sees Kelly in the courthouse find out the news that her dad's killer is left free, and it really gets to Owen's conscience. Suddenly, Owen gets super angry and regretful about the choices he made. So when he goes to see Max, he tells her right off the bat, "We're done. I hurt someone by helping you. And it's somebody who doesn't deserve the betrayal that she's feeling right now." Max starts to defend her actions, but Owen truly seems to be done with her. He ignores her defense and says, "You're operations problem now. They're going to pick you up from prison when you're released. Have a nice life." And then he walks out. As he flies back to the airport, he makes a phone call to Hannah. He's really emotional, and he's not the only one, because after having that talk with his boyfriend, broke up with him. Terrence is really upset about it because he really liked this guy, but the guy wasn't ready to take the next step, and Terrence was, so they just weren't going to work. Owen really called to get Hannah to tell him that he's not a bad person. And Hannah doesn't think he's a bad person, but what she does think is he's selfish. As Owen is having this heart-to-heart with Hannah, Max is getting released from prison. But they're not out of the woods just quite yet. Because Max was right. Dawn didn't just show up out of the goodness of her heart because she found an asset that was usable. She's working with Xander. Together, they've come up with a great idea on how to use Max. It's high reward, low risk, and they're planning out two options. One to put her back in country, and the other to put her in the ground. In episode 5, Owen's friends from the regional office pick Max up and take her to her house, which was trashed by the police. It's the first time she's been here since she was arrested. While she's supposed to stay under their watch, she doesn't. She has an underground tunnel to escape from. and she does that. By the time the people in the regional office realize it, it's too late, and nobody actually wants to let Owen know that she's gone. But Max isn't just trying to escape. She needs money. She wants to sell her safe house operation. She doesn't know many people that would be interested in it, but one of the people that she does think would purchase it is amazingly the guy she stole money from. She finds him in college of all places. He's majoring in psychology to better know how to manipulate people in situations. The deal that Max proposes is for $5 million. She hands over her operation, which she claims is untraceable by the police, and she gives him 1 day to take it to his boss. His boss is a guy named El Jefe, the leader of one of the largest cartels in the world. Max goes to leave, but Talco isn't willing to just let her walk out. He feels like he can probably get this information for free by torturing her. He, along with somebody else from the cartel, jump her in the parking lot, but they get the worst of the fight. After Max kicks their ass, she tells them that the price just went up to $6 million. When she finally does leave the garage, she calls up one of the people from the regional office and yells, "Tell your boss I need the lawyer back." The lawyer, Owen, is just happy to be rid of Max at this point. He's tired, he's worn down, and he's just done with that operation. He flies back to D.C. on a red-eye, gets to the apartment, and Hannah asks if he's okay, and he says, "Yeah, of course I'm okay." But Hannah didn't ask that question because Owen looks run down. She asked it because of the phone call that they had the previous night. She's starting to get really concerned about Owen. Even though he claims he's okay, she's not really buying it. Owen swears that it was just this one case. It got to him, but it's over. He's not going to have to worry about it anymore. In fact, he's going to be around a lot more, so he won't get so lost in it all. And Hannah thinks that that's great, both him being around and him not getting lost. His phone then pings because he sent a calendar reminder to send Amelia flowers, and Hannah sees it. She didn't really expect him to be the sending flowers type, and when she calls Amelia his girlfriend, Owen corrects her and says, "No, she's not my girlfriend. Never mind." They get interrupted, though, with a knock at the door, and to Owen's surprise, it is the Secret Service. They demand that he come with them, and they won't tell him why. When he gets to the White House, he meets with a guy named Kevin Mills. He's the chief of staff to the president. He's also not Bob. And the reason why Kevin called for Owen was because he keeps hearing about this Owen Hendricks guy dropping the name Not Bob. And he would like to know why. Owen quickly fills Not Bob in on the Maxine Meladze case and explains that Maxine says that Not Bob was her handler. But Kevin says, yeah, she's lying. I've heard of her, but she wasn't one of mine. I was too far up the food chain by the time she became an asset. But even if I was her case officer, she only would have known my cover name because I'm not an idiot. So that means somebody inside the agency fed her my internal nickname. And if they leaked that, they sure as hell could have leaked other secrets. So I'm going to need you to find out who gave me up. Owen asks about anybody that would have interacted with Max, and Kevin tells him about a woman named Rita Stevens. Unfortunately, Rita Stevens is dead. She drank a ton and got liver cancer and passed away. But Kevin's convinced that even on her worst bender, she never would have made a mistake like this. Owen really doesn't want to dive back into the Max Meladze case, but he also has no choice. After meeting with Not Bob, Owen wraps up and heads back to the office. He immediately runs into Dawn. The folks at the Phoenix regional office did call up Owen to give him the news, but they called the wrong number. They got Dawn instead, so now Dawn knows that Max has slipped out of their grasp. Dawn starts questioning Owen about where Max went, what she said to him, if he knows anything. And Owen tells her, I know nothing. And when Dawn tells him that Meladze is his responsibility, Owen turns around and says, no, she's not. She's yours, because I did my job. So stop trying to pin your failures on me. I don't know where she is. I don't want to know where she is. And for good measure, I don't care where she is. You can handle this one. Good luck. He then continues to walk to his office where he runs into Amelia. She thanks him for the flowers. She thought it was very sweet. And then she makes plans to really thank him for those flowers later that night. I'm talking about sex stuff, folks. Sex stuff. After setting up this date with Amelia, he gets congratulations from both Lester and Violet. Even though they're praising him for getting the graymail case thrown out, they're doing it with ulterior motives. Because he did so well with his graymail case, he is in Nyland's good graces. And that gets Violet very jealous. But with Owen in Nyland's good graces, they want to play this thing off to get in Owen's good graces. They feel like by buttering up to him, they'll have the inside track to Nyland. Once Lester and Violet leave from kissing Owen's ass, Owen gets a phone call, and he's very surprised on who's on the other end. It's Max. She tells him, "I need you back in Phoenix," but Owen just hangs up on her, and she calls right back. So he says, "I'm done with you, Max. Don't call me again," and he hangs up. But his anxiety is going through the roof suddenly, and the phone continues to ring. He caves in, answers the phone, and she tells him that leaving is not his decision, and he's about to be reminded of that. That's because he gets a call on his other line, and it's Nyland's office. They want to meet with him. Right before he heads up to Nyland's office, he meets with Giannis. The stress of the Max situation, the idea of going back to it, Owen doesn't want to do any of it. So he asks Giannis for tips on how to resign. But Giannis tells him, "You can't. You're in too deep. And if you somehow figure out a way to leave, you'll become a scapegoat." Nah, man, you got to stick this one out. Reluctantly, Owen does go to Nyland's office. He delays it as long as he can. And when he opens the door, it's Nyland and Dawn. Owen tells Nyland that he finished the case yesterday, and Nyland says, "Well, apparently you didn't." Dawn then asks if there's something going on between the two, Max and Owen, an accusation that Owen denies profusely. One of the reasons why Dawn thinks this is because Max, for whatever reason, is demanding Owen back on this case. And that is something that Owen can't figure out himself. Owen thinks that this might just be a strategic play by Max. She knows that the government needs her, so she's trying to test to see how far she can push him. Nyland tells Owen to go to Phoenix, bring Max back, no drama at all. He then dismisses both Owen and Dawn out of his office. When they do leave, Dawn starts telling Owen on what to do when he gets to Max, that he should be the one to take the fall if he has to, if Max is trying to tie up some loose ends before she leaves Phoenix. Loose ends that are criminal in nature. This starts a big pissing contest between Owen and Dawn. Before Owen does head off to Phoenix to grab Max, he needs to talk to somebody and get some advice. He doesn't want to talk to Hannah, so he calls up Terrence. Owen does his best to explain to Terrence what he's currently going through, the high-pressure situation, without giving too many details. The detail that Terrence hyper-focuses on, though, is the she. That's because Terrence is really good friends with Hannah. He was friends with Hannah before he was ever friends with Owen. And he's worried that Owen might be attracted to this she, which would result in Hannah possibly getting upset. He doesn't want to see Hannah get upset. He's concerned for his friend. He does, though, give Owen a little bit of a pep talk before he heads off to Phoenix. Owen flies in, and he's planning on meeting with Max at a hotel. They stay the night, and then he flies her back the next morning, no problem. When he goes to the hotel that he's supposed to be Max in, it is a fancy hotel, and Max is looking damn good in this newly bought red dress. She also has a bunch of other bags that she bought. She went on a little bit of a spending spree. Owen, though, is not there to play games. He's not there to be her friend. He sternly directs her that they will go to a Days Inn down the street, they will stay there, and then they will fly back. But Max, knowing that she has the upper hand, knowing that she has the leverage, forces Owen to get a suite at that fancy hotel that night, even though Owen can't afford it. So much so that when he goes to run his card, it gets declined. He's forced to call up Hannah, hat in hand, and ask her if she can put the charge on her credit card. It takes a little bit of convincing because Hannah's more concerned with the fact that just a mere 24 hours ago, Owen told her that he was done with this case, and he's clearly not. But she says okay in the end. That's because she doesn't know how much this room costs. Costs a whole lot of money. With the okay from Hannah, they run the card, and Owen and Max get the room together. But they're unaware that they're being watched. Dawn was convinced that there was, in fact, something going on with Hannah and Owen, so she sent one of her minions to watch them. And he's filming the whole interaction. He finds it super suspicious that these two are checking into a suite together. And while there is nothing going on with the two, it's not for lack of trying. Max does try to hook up with Owen. Owen, showing insane willpower, says no to Max repeatedly. She puts him in some really tough situations, but he stays true to his values. With hooking up no longer on the table, Max tells Owen that she's going to need cash if she's going to get put back in Belarus. If she's going to get safe passage back into the mob, she's going to need about $5 million, maybe even 10. Owen thinks that the agency should just be able to give her that money since she's a hotshot asset, but they're not able to. As far as the agency is concerned, she doesn't even exist. That's going to mean that they're going to have to pretend Max is a new recruit. And asking for $10 million, even $5 million for a new recruit, it's never going to get processed. So before they leave the next day, Max is going to have to sell her safe house business. This then sparks a game of a truth for a truth. Max asking Owen about his personal life, Owen asking Max about her job. The first question that Owen has is, who are you selling your business to? And Max tells him that it's Talco's boss, Sandoval Luna, the head of the Aquino cartel. Max then goes asking Owen why he became a lawyer, because it just seems very unlike him. He tells her that he became a lawyer because he promised his mom he wouldn't end up in the same fate as his dad, dying in war. Owen follows up by asking how Max became an asset at the agency, and she tells him a case officer approached her. It was a woman. She was drunk. But Max doesn't think anything of that because, as she tells Owen, half of her handlers were drunk. It's difficult for Westerners to adjust to life in Minsk. Max changed the topic by asking Owen if he's ever been in love. And he says no, but it's clearly a lie, and Max starts guessing it must be the girl from social media, the one he went to school with, a.k.a. Hannah. In order to get the attention off him, Owen asks Max, well, have you ever been in love? And she says, yes, my daughter. Owen had no idea that Max had a daughter, let alone that she had, key word on that her daughter passed away. This topic changes the complete mood in the room. Owen gets the final question. He asks Max, why did you bring me here? And she says, it's because you're the only person I've ever been able to count on. They then go to bed separately, and while Owen is in the shower the next morning, the room gets a phone call from a very angry Hannah, and Max answers. In order to thank her, Owen decided to send Hannah flowers as well, and she really appreciated it until she got the charge on her credit card and saw how much it was for. That prompted the phone call, and she's surprised when Max answers it. Just talking to Max gets Hannah pretty nervous, especially when she asks her, are you Hannah? Hannah doesn't answer, but Max says, you know, he told me last night you were the one who got away? To which Hannah just laughs off saying, no, he didn't. But Max says, yeah, he did. Hannah, though, ignores it, just saying to Max, tell Owen he's my unpaid intern for the next 6 months, and then hanging up. Although she's getting pressured by Terrence to just end things completely with Owen. A little bit later, Owen exits the shower, and to his surprise, all of his clothes have been thrown out by Max, who bought him new ones that are, quote, more appropriate for the work they'll be doing. She also gets in a very provocative stance, so it looks like hooking up isn't completely off the table, at least not in Max's eyes. But for Owen it is, especially when he finds out that Hannah called. Owen tries to call Hannah back, but Hannah sends him straight to voicemail. They then pack up and get dressed, and Owen has the TV on. He notices something. It's not Bob. And Owen looks at the TV and looks at Max and says, quick, on the TV, which man is not Bob? Which one is it? And Max can't answer it. It's at that moment that Owen realizes she was lying about not Bob the whole time. He wasn't her handler. And she admits, yeah, she never met not Bob. He wasn't her handler. It was Xander Goy who told her that name. And Owen is processing all of this. A short while later, they leave, heading over to where the sale is going to be completed. Owen gets really nervous when Max tells him that he's going in alone and she needs to track his location. She would go, but Talco tried to kill her the other day, so she can't. She's convinced that Talco won't play those same games with Owen. And as for her source of why her operation is untraceable, she's got somebody at the bank that feeds her homes that were foreclosed on. That's the whole key to this operation. That woman. Max promises not to kill this woman, whose name is Zuri, but to tell Talco that she is willing to kill her, and they'll believe him. She then drops him off at the meeting location, and a little while later, Owen is picked up in what looks like a box truck by Talco. He reluctantly gets into the truck and tells them right off the bat, I'm just a proxy. I'm here to negotiate. But Owen is surprised when Talco says, oh, we're driving away. You're not negotiating with me. You're negotiating with El Jefe. In episode 6, Owen is taken to a train yard. That's where he's going to meet with El Jefe. He's escorted inside a train car that is packed to the gills with what looks like are rockets. There's an interesting logo on the boxes with a scorpion whose tail is a rocket, and Owen makes note of it, but then he's escorted in to actually have his meeting with El Jefe. There's a lot of posturing by both sides, El Jefe coming in with a lowball offer, Owen standing his ground saying that's not going to work. The price is $7 million, but you're not just getting Max's operations here. You'll also get an inroad to her operation in Eastern Europe. El Jefe knows all about Max's history with Europe. He knows that she's ex-Russian Mafia, but as Owen points out, you're never ex-Russian Mafia, just like you're never ex-Aquino Cartel. There's a power play coming, and Max is going to end up on top. Owen's fast thinking and negotiating skills has El Jefe paying $7 million for the operation. Although Owen does have to give up the name of the banker, Zuri Wench, and how she helps Max get foreclosed homes. After negotiating the deal, Owen and Max hop on a plane and head back to Virginia, where they're surprisingly picked up by Dawn. Owen wasn't expecting that, but as Dawn tells him, she's my asset, so I'm picking her up. The plan is to take Max to the safe house and then move her over to Langley for her intake procedure. While it's frustrating, they do have to act like Max is a new asset. Max and Dawn get in the car, but when Owen goes to get in the car, Dawn tells him that she needs to debrief Meladze and that he's going to find his own way there. Before Owen calls an Uber, he decides to text Not Bob, telling him that he's got some information. And then Owen gets a text of his own. It's from Terrence, telling him that he's late to a scavenger hunt that he agreed to go to, and that Hannah is 5 mimosas deep. She's really upset. As Owen makes his way over to the bar to meet his friends, Meladze is sort of getting debriefed by Dawn. These two have a past. Neither of them acknowledge it to Owen, but they know each other. And Max blames Dawn for leaving her in Belarus, but Dawn says, that wasn't my call. And Max points out, yeah, but you went along with it. Max definitely does not trust Dawn. She feels like she has ulterior motives. Dawn lays out why this is a win for her, but then changed the topic to Max sleeping with Owen. Even though it's not true, Max doesn't deny it, just saying that Owen's a useful tool, nothing more. But she does say that she wouldn't jeopardize her future by giving Owen dirt on Dawn. You get the sense that Dawn is one of those people that Max talked about, the ones that she knows a lot on. By the time those two get to the safe house, Owen has made his way to the bar. Terrence, though, isn't talking to Hannah. He's talking to a guy that he knows, a guy he's very interested in. That's when Owen walks up and interrupts their conversation. Terrence introduced the two, and the guy's name is Linus. He works with Terrence at the Treasury Department. He's also a pretty big deal there. Linus can sense that these two want to chat, so he gets up and goes to the bathroom, and Terrence lays into Owen. He thinks it was a scumbag move using Hannah's credit card to hook up with somebody else. But when Owen tries to set the record straight, Terrence tells him, I don't want to hear it, man. Tell her. Before Owen can do that, he has to get through her buffer. It's the same bitchy girl from Smoot's office, the same one that reveled in the idea of Owen getting tortured on C-SPAN. She tells Owen that Hannah doesn't want to talk to him, but also that Smoot confirmed he's still a nobody, so he should expect another subpoena very soon. After more back and forth, Hannah finally interjects and says, it's fine, he can talk to me. And Owen starts going into damage control, apologizing but also clearing up what actually happened. He doesn't mention Max by name, but he just says that he got roped into going back to Phoenix to deal with this asset. Hannah keeps telling him that she doesn't care, she shouldn't be upset, they're not even dating, but it's clear that she is upset. She's not the only one who's upset, though. So is Owen. He doesn't like being portrayed like this. He tells Hannah, I've made a lot of mistakes, but by far the worst one is hurting you. Because it seems like it's genuine, Hannah forgives him. They then start focusing on the scavenger hunt. Owen actually knows where one of the things is, but they get interrupted when Secret Service shows up looking for Owen. Not Bob wasn't about to wait for him to just pop on by the White House. He wants to talk to him immediately. As soon as Owen gets in the car, Not Bob says, what have you found? But Owen doesn't tell him, at least not yet. Owen's realizing how to play the game, and he realizes he has a little bit of leverage in this situation. So he tells Kevin, Senator Smoot is up my ass. He's got a subpoena on me. I want it to go away. Can you make that happen? And Kevin chuckles and says, yeah, I'll put up a fight, but you won't have to worry about it. That is when Owen tells him about Xander Goy, how Goy was the one who gave up his name. And it makes sense. After meeting with Goy, suddenly he had people trying to kill him. Even though Kevin's never heard of Xander Goy, he does find it very interesting and would like to know what more Xander Goy has to hide. Kevin then changed the topic, telling Owen that he could use a clearer picture of what's going on at the OGC. He doesn't come right out and say it, but he wants Owen to spy on Nylan. And Owen tells Kevin, I'm not doing that. I have too much respect for Nylan. That was the right answer. Because as it turns out, Not Bob and Nylan are bros. Really good friends, and this was all a test. Owen passed. He then kicks Owen out of the car, and about an hour later, Owen shows up at Langley and meets up with Dawn and Max. They've got a full day ahead of them. Max has to get vetted, and that's going to be a whole thing. In order to do that, she has a polygraph test, forms to fill out, and if she fails any of it, she gets bounced, and then suddenly she's not useful anymore. They also get on the same page about how they found Max. That way they won't draw suspicion. When they get out of the elevator, Langley is an absolute shit show because it's family day. You've got kids running all over the place. They bypass the swarm of kids and go to Dawn's office, where she has the entire Russian mob on a whiteboard, laid out top to bottom. Max does recognize a few, although a lot of the people she dealt with are dead. To make it worse, a lot of the ones she does recognize don't like her. Max starts pointing out the people and saying, yeah, we're going to need him dead, and she doesn't like me either. There are a couple she thinks she can win over, but the rest of them have to be, quote, neutralized, aka they need to die. What they need to find out is who the gatekeeper is. That's the council member who they have to bribe to welcome her back in. Dawn reassures her that they're working on that, and then she pulls out the paperwork that they have to start. It's common stuff. Name, birthday, where you were born, parents, siblings. She's honest with all of it, until she's asked about children, and she just says none. It's not totally a lie, but it's also not the truth, because the rest of them, she was saying deceased. Owen notices it. Owen, however, is just sitting there doing nothing. He wants to be useful. So he excuses himself because he wants to go hunt down the guy who's doing the psych evaluation to find out if he can get any insight that could help them out. Before he does that, he goes and asks Lester and Violet for help, but they brush him off, saying, yeah, we're not helping you out, sorry. So he has to go to Nyland's office, where he's got kids running all over the place. He gives Nyland a quick update about the fact that Max is in the building, she's getting vetted, and then he asks Nyland for some advice on how to handle the whole vetting process. Unfortunately, Nyland tells him there's not a whole lot you can do. We don't control the questions. Nyland asks Owen if there's anything else, and Owen says, yeah, actually. I had a meeting with Kevin Mills, a.k.a. Not Bob. He fills Nyland in on everything that happened. Their initial meeting and the fact that Not Bob asked him to spy, but it turned out they know each other. He didn't want to fill Nyland in on the initial meeting because he wanted Nyland to have plausible deniability. But Nyland knew everything, because as Not Bob told Owen in the car, they're friends. And for whatever reason, Owen is a little shook. He can't figure out if Kevin told Nyland because he figured Owen wouldn't say anything, or if he figured Owen would say something. It's all Owen can think about when he leaves Nyland's office, although he doesn't have a lot of time to think about it because he runs into Amelia. He's extremely fidgety and asks Amelia to point him in the direction of the psychologist, and she does. Owen heads there, and he gets good news from this guy. The doctor tells him, look, man, I pass everybody. But with the good news comes some bad news. As easy as this guy is, the guy administering the polygraph test is the opposite. He'll bounce you for lying about anything. So now Owen has to hunt him down. He ends up locating him in, of all places, the bathroom. He tries to get a sense of who this guy is, what to expect, but this guy is way too rigid. Even when Owen tries to joke around, the guy just doesn't have a sense of humor about anything. Because of this, Owen's anxiety is through the roof. In order to get his mind off of it, he heads over to Giannis's office. He wants to show him the scorpion sketch that he made, the one that he saw on the boxes in the train that was run by the cartel. As soon as Giannis sees it, though, he knows what it is, and he gets extremely agitated. That's because they're American anti-tank missiles, and they're linked back to Giannis because his Spec Ops team was smuggling them out of the country to sell to some shady people. That way they could track them and arrest them. Giannis advised them against this, thinking it was a disaster of an idea, but they drugged him and did it anyway. He calls up the leader of the Spec Ops team and starts ripping into him for this dumb idea. The guy assures Giannis that they would have disabled the rockets, but as Giannis points out, there's literally YouTube videos that show you how to rearm them. When Giannis hangs up the phone, he just says, we are so screwed. And Owen can't figure out why he said we. Giannis chuckles and says, if I have to testify about how I allowed an unsanctioned covert op to put rockets in the hands of terrorists, you'll have to testify about how you ended up on a cartel drug train. If Congress finds out about this, it'll be the biggest scandal in a generation. This leads Owen to basically having a full-blown panic attack in the bathroom. After a little bit of time, he is able to collect himself. He heads to go see the update with Max, and she just finished her psych evaluation. She's about to do her polygraph test. Although the psychologist tells him she's a phenomenal asset, but you absolutely cannot trust her. Before Max does go to the polygraph test, she tells everybody she has to go to the bathroom, and Owen follows her. She doesn't actually go to the bathroom, though, although she has to. What she does is she's been downing 5-hour energy shots. This is a strategic play. She wants to keep her heart rate jolted up. That way, the polygraph won't know what's a lie and what's the truth. This works. Guy can't tell what's the truth from what's a lie. But as Max is answering the questions, Owen and Dawn are watching the questions from a separate room. At one point, Owen turns to Dawn and says, "Hey, in Yemen, you told me you've never met Max before, right? Because ever since she's gotten here, you haven't asked me one question about her, and it's as if you've already met her before and you know her." And that's because, yes, these two definitely have a history. We're talking a 12-year history. Dawn was actually the one who got Max to be an asset. She jumped into Max's car one night and told her, "I work for the CIA, and I know you killed your husband and blamed his murder on a rival. This allowed you to take your husband's place in the Russian mafia. I also know that if the council were to find out what you did, they'd cut you apart with a blowtorch. So I want you to start working for me. All you have to do is tell me what they tell you." After that, Max became Dawn's asset. But the fact that Owen thinks that Dawn and Max know each other is not good news for Dawn. She goes straight to Nyland's office and says, "I think Owen's been compromised. I think we need to put him under the polygraph test." Nyland calls in Amelia, not knowing that Amelia and Owen actually are currently in a relationship together. But if you're going to put anybody under a polygraph test, you need a lawyer there present. And Amelia is going to be the lawyer for Owen. When she hears the accusation from Dawn, she dismisses it. But Dawn does pull out the picture and says they shared a hotel room together. They dismiss Dawn, they call Owen in, and they tell him that they think he's been compromised. Immediately, Owen knows that it was Dawn who did this, and he starts panicking a little bit, pleading his case to Nyland and Amelia. He even goes so far as to say Gilbane is the one who's been compromised by the asset, but he has no proof of that. He backs down a little bit from that, but does claim that there is a history between the two. Even if Gilbane says there isn't, there is. Unfortunately, though, for Owen, Nyland tells him, "My hands are tied. It was brought to my attention, so we have to go through with it." A short while later, Owen is hooked up to the polygraph test as Amelia and Dawn watch from the other room. In the middle of the test, Owen gets so frustrated that he takes his aggression out on the guy administering the test, saying how the test is inaccurate, how anyone can beat it, how it's not even important anymore. In retaliation, the guy asks him some pretty interesting questions. Questions that Owen doesn't really want to answer knowing Amelia's in the other room. Like, have you ever seen Max naked? And he has when she was trying to seduce him. He also asks Owen if he ever had sexual contact with Max, and Owen says no. But then he asks, have you wanted to have sexual contact with Max? And Owen gets frustrated, and Amelia's the one who tells the polygraph test guy, move on. He finishes the rest of the test, and he passes, but he fails with Amelia. She lets him know that he did pass the test, but also that she's breaking up with him. At the end of the day, while she has fun with him, Owen's too 20-something for her. After getting dumped, he heads to meet with Gilbane and Max, and Gilbane isn't happy. Not only because Owen passed his polygraph test, but also because Nyland had called Dawn's boss and insisted that Owen stay on the operation. Owen tells Dawn that he had nothing to do with it, but also that if she tries to sabotage him again, it'll end badly for her. Dawn breaks up the pissing contest by saying, we got to focus on how we're going to buy my way back in. Bad news is they found out who she has to bribe, and it's the worst person, because the guy, who's named Lev, worked with Max's husband, and he wasn't a huge fan of Max. So he thinks he's going to want at least $10 million. Now they need to figure out a way to get $3 million, and Max has an idea. She has that money, and then some, in a Swiss bank account, but it's got sanctions all over it. All they have to do is get the accounts unsanctioned. And that's going to be Owen's job. That night, Owen gets home. He gives his roommates the update on Amelia, and then he asks Terrence a Treasury Department question. Owen tries really hard to be discreet about the situation that he finds himself in. And what both Terrence and Hannah tell him is, it's going to take a lot to get those accounts unsanctioned. Hannah would know. Her parents repped several oligarchs over the years. And even though they've tried, they've never gotten the U.S. government to budge on sanctions. That's because there's a giant list of sanctioned accounts that goes to all the banks. It's updated daily, and each account is literally locked into the bank's computers. A red flag goes up if anyone tries to access them. The only way to unlock an account is to get it excluded by the bank. Owen's ears immediately perk up, and he says, who do I have to talk to about that? And it's Linus, the guy that Terrence was talking to. The next day, Owen meets up with Linus in a parking lot. He explains it's a matter of national security, and he fills him in. Linus' first reaction is, no way. But Owen presses. So Linus is going to do it for him. He's going to unsanction the account for an hour. That's as long as Owen has. In return, though, Linus wants to go on a date with Terrence, so Owen said he'll put a good word in. He then gets ready to leave for Belarus, Russia, that whole flight, but he gets called in Nyland's office beforehand. There was one question that Owen didn't get right on the polygraph test, and that was, has the asset ever lied? So Owen fills Nyland in on the fact that Max said she didn't have any kids when she probably should have said deceased. He didn't correct it because he didn't want to give Dawn the leverage. He just doesn't trust Dawn Gilbane to do the same. Nyland agrees with him, and he tells him if Gilbane has been compromised, you need to get me proof of that. After Owen leaves Nyland's office, Nyland meets with both Lester and Violet. He tells them both that he's sending them to Geneva as well. He wants them to keep an eye on Owen. If all goes well, Owen's never going to know about it. Gilbane, Max, and Owen then get on a plane to head overseas. Dawn does a little mission debrief telling them the next 48 hours are mission critical. Max and Owen will head to Geneva to get the money from her Swiss bank account. Dawn and her team will head to Germany where they'll begin mission planning to get the reinsertion into Belarus. Owen, though, knows that Dawn isn't going to just let Max and himself run around Geneva together. And Dawn tells him, you're right. Xander Goy landed in Geneva about an hour ago. He'll be babysitting you guys. We start out episode 7 not with Owen, but his roommate, Hannah. She gets a phone call in the morning from her mother saying, hey, I'm going to pick you up. Her mother, though, doesn't want to just chit-chat. She has ulterior motives. With Hannah's boyfriend, Jeff, working at the White House, she needs some dirt. There was a meeting that took place. She wants to know who was there. Hannah feels kind of scummy about asking Jeff any of this, and her mother presses her, saying, this is Washington, D.C., this is how things work. Late that night, Hannah does that. She gets all the information from Jeff during pillow talk, and she sends it to her mother. But the next day, Jeff is fired from his dream job at the White House. They found out he was a rat. Hannah calls up her mother, furious because she got Jeff fired. That was never discussed. And their mother apologizes for not telling her the whole truth, but says that Kevin Mills, the chief of staff, needed to know who the leak was, and now the chief of staff is going to owe her a favor. When Hannah finds this out, she feels disgusting. Over in Geneva, Max and Owen arrive, but they have to be on high alert. Geneva is a Russian mob playground, according to Max. The goal is to get in, get Max's money, and get out without drawing any unwanted attention to themselves. While it makes Owen a little bit uncomfortable, the cover that Max has come up with for him is he's nothing more than her boy toy. So when they arrive at the hotel in Geneva, that's what it appears to be. But Owen is unaware of the fact that his buddies, Violet and Lester, are outside watching this. But while they wait for Owen to do anything, Owen and Max head to the room where they meet with Xander Goy. Xander tries to get really tough with Max about revealing his name. But Owen interrupts, telling Xander, it wasn't real cool that you tried to have me killed. And while Xander denies all of that, he's not all that convincing about it, and no one believes him. They then stop posturing and go over the plan. If everything goes well, they head to the bank the next day, get Max's money. She meets up with the gatekeeper, she buys her way back into the mob, and then Owen goes home. Max's concern, though, has nothing to do with the bank. It has to do with the local mobster named Kirill. She asks Xander if Kirill knows that she's there, and Xander says, well, if he doesn't, he will. I mean, half the staff at the hotel's on his payroll. Xander gets up to leave, but before he does, he hands Owen a flash cable that came for him at the consulate. In order to get in touch with the person who sent it, he has to go back to the consulate, which means he has to leave Max in the hotel room to herself. Not to worry, though, she is busy looking for bugs that were left by Xander, and it doesn't take long for her to find them. When Max destroys the last bug, all the way in Germany, Dawn calls up Xander and rips him apart for putting the cameras and the recording devices in easy-to-find places. They both then start posturing a little bit because they're both up for the same promotion and they're competing for it. But Dawn gets off the phone when Dave, the deadbeat dad, he shows up. He's going to be a part of her operation. As Gilbane was talking to Xander about the camera issue, Owen had head to the consulate because the person that sent him that wire was Giannis. There's an issue with the rockets. They've been tracked to a terrorist hotspot. Giannis is freaking out about this. The headline writes itself. CIA gives missiles to terrorists. Owen, though, comes up with a plan. He tells Giannis to make it more confusing. The more confusing it is, the more that Americans won't care. He uses Watergate and the Iran-Contra as prime examples of this. It's actually pretty genius. Before Owen heads back to the hotel, he goes to a bar to have a drink by himself. He's approached by a blonde woman who seems like she's interested in Owen, but because he was warned about this sort of thing, he's nervous that she too is a spy. He completely ruins the mood with her. He thinks he's being sexpionaged when she just thinks he's being weird, and she walks out. Although she played dumb though, Owen was probably right. That same woman is outside when Owen and Max go to get dinner that night. At the dinner, Owen doesn't tell Max what he did at the consulate. She doesn't tell Owen about the bugs that she found. Their dinner is being watched by Violet and Lester. Because Owen and Max have so much chemistry from an outsider standpoint, Violet and Lester start questioning whether the two are hooking up. It leads Violet to question Lester on why he never made a move on her. And he basically says that it just never ends well. Inside the restaurant, dinner's going great though. Max actually got Owen a gift because they're going to be parting ways soon and she wanted to give him something to remember her by. It's a watch. A really nice watch. They make a little bit of chit-chat on what she's planning on doing when she gets home, which she doesn't reveal any of that information. What she does reveal, though, is the dirt that she has on Xander Goy. Xander was having an affair with Kirill's wife, the same local mobster that would be on the lookout for Max. Now, Kirill knew that his wife was having an affair, he just didn't know with who. He searched, never getting the answers. He even offered up a bounty, but still he came up short. Max then excuses herself to go to the bathroom because she noticed somebody sitting in the hotel bar. It's one of Kirill's men. When she goes to the bathroom, he follows her in, and she ends up killing him in there. But when she exits, she doesn't tell Owen a thing, just saying, let's go back to the hotel. And at the hotel, they hook up. Owen resists at first, but he can't resist all that much, because murder is nature's most powerful aphrodisiac. The next day, they get dressed, they head to the Bank of Geneva. Everything's going according to plan until they try to take the money out. The banker tells them that account is frozen. They tell him to check again, and he once again says it's frozen. And not only is it frozen, but I have to alert the authorities that somebody tried to access it. Both Owen and Max are completely confused, and that's when it dawns on Owen, oh my god, I messed the time up. When he told Linus about this, he never made sure to convey he meant Geneva time. So they showed up 6 hours early. They walk outside because Owen has to get in touch with Linus immediately, but Linus is sleeping. He then calls up Lester, having no idea that Lester is in Geneva, and asks him to stop on by, but Lester plays sick. His last remaining person he can call is Amelia. She's hesitant to do it, but she does it anyway, heading over and waking Linus up. When Linus hops on the phone, he gives Owen some bad news, though. There's nothing he can do about it. As Max and Owen are walking outside the bank trying to figure out what they're going to do, Owen notices an unmarked van. It screams CIA, and when he walks over to it, he's really surprised because there's Lester, and he looks really healthy. After Owen realizes that Lester and Violet were sent there to babysit him, Xander Goy shows up wanting to know what's going on. Everybody piles into the van, Owen explains the situation, and they try to go into damage control. A couple of bad ideas are thrown out, but Owen gets a really good one. It's the fact that they work for the CIA. Their whole mission is collecting intelligence. All they have to do is collect intelligence on this banker and blackmail him. And they get some. That blackmail, though, doesn't work, so Max goes with an alternative approach, threatening him with bodily harm. That works. He's pretty terrified at their threats, but he explains, I can't access her account. It was locked the moment I tried to access it. That's when Max says, well, I do have a safety deposit box, and that is no problem for the banker. He lets them in, and Owen's a little confused because there's no money in it. There's passports. There's a picture of her daughter. There's even a gun, which she gives to Owen because she took one off the guy she killed. But there's no money. There is something, though, in there that she wants. And she says to Owen, I need to arrange a meeting with Kirill. She goes off in the corner, calls somebody up to arrange that meeting, and Owen notices something in the box. It's a little book with drawings in it. He finds it interesting, so he pockets it. When Max turns around, she tells Owen the meeting's on for tonight, but she doesn't want to tell anybody else at the CIA about this meeting. Owen wants to alert his coworkers, but Max convinces him not to, saying that if push comes to shove, his coworkers will sell him down the river. And deep down, Owen knows that that's true. As Max puts it, it's better to apologize after you survive than die because you trusted the wrong person. Owen and Max are able to sneak away from Lester, Violet, Xander, and that night they meet with Kirill. Kirill wants to kill Max until she tells him, I know who slept with your wife. When Owen hears that, he turns to Max and says, you can't do this. But Max ignores it, because the bounty for giving up Xander is $2 million. She pulls out pictures that she grabbed from the safety deposit box as proof of Xander and Kirill's wife having an affair. She tells Kirill, send it to Lev. Consider it a down payment for a future conversation. I'm going to make amends so I can come home. Kirill, though, looks at her, shaking his head and says, you know there are people who will never welcome you back. And she says, I know. That's what I have him for, and gestures to Owen. She then walks out with Owen, and he asks, what did you just do? And she says, I did what I had to do to survive. But her surviving means death for Xander. He stops by the hotel room looking for Max, and he doesn't find her. What he does find is somebody who slices him up and throws him off the balcony to his death. When Max and Owen arrive back at the hotel, police are surrounding it. They're surrounding Xander's dead body. It's not a good look for Max or Owen. After all, he was in their room. They recognize this, and Max says, we gotta go now. As he's leaving, though, he just so happens to notice the blonde woman from the bar. She's amongst the crowd of onlookers. He also notices his roommates. Hannah and Terrence flew to Geneva. After Amelia stopped by and wouldn't say if Owen was in danger or not, they felt like they had to go help him out. They also wanted the distraction. Owen does notice him, but he keeps walking. And in the season finale, everybody is concerned about where Owen is. Hannah and Terrence certainly don't know where he is, and they decide to go to the American consulate. Lester and Violet also don't know where he is, but they have to do damage control, get in the room, and get any sign of the fact that Owen Hendricks from the CIA was in there. They have to make it look like a clean room, and they have to do it ASAP because the cops are coming. A little while later, Lester, Violet, Nyland, Amelia, Dawn, and the director of the CIA hop on a Zoom call to discuss this mess. They fill the director in on what the plan was, why they think it went wrong, and where Owen Hendricks might be. They figure that he might have ran so they can get to a secure location, and then they'll reach out and contact. They're not jumping to conclusions that Owen Hendricks was the one that killed Xander. In fact, Lester points out that he's pretty sure Owen and Max were clear of the location when Xander was killed. The director gives Dawn 24 hours to get in touch with Max and Owen and get this operation back on track. If it's not, he's pulling the plug. He then puts Lester Kitchens on operations as well. Lester has a background in this, and while Nyland isn't happy about it, and Violet certainly isn't happy about it, Lester has no choice. It's the director of the CIA. He then dismisses everybody in the Zoom except Lester and Dawn and says, if it comes down to it, burn the current players before you lose this opportunity altogether. That means getting rid of Owen, getting rid of Max. But the big question is, where are Owen and Max? Well, they're on a bus headed to Germany. Owen is not exactly happy about what took place in Geneva. He feels like Max had a hand in the death of Xander Goy. He starts blaming her, but she reminds him, I did what I had to do to survive because you couldn't get me the money. And I didn't get him killed. His dick got him killed. Owen then stupidly turns on his phone and he's got a bunch of missed calls from Lester, Violet, even Hannah. But Max grabs the phone, chucks it out of the window and says, your phone is a tracking device. No phones or radio silent. Although after a few hours, Max does want to get in touch with Dawn. So they end up stealing a phone on the bus. Max heads to the back of the bus. She calls up Dawn. She makes sure that it's safe to come back to Germany, and Dawn assures her, yep, it's safe. We're waiting for you. Owen then borrows the phone and calls up Giannis. That little book that he took from Max's security box, he feels like he can use it in this Giannis fiasco. Owen doesn't exactly know what he has in his possession, but he knows it's Russian intelligence of some kind, and he knows that Giannis can find some way to use it. So he takes pictures of them, saves them in his Instagram drafts. Giannis gets access to it, and Giannis gets a great idea. He's going to stage a mission where his special operations forces just happen to find these documents, and these documents just happen to lead to the rockets. Problem solved. Right after calling Giannis, Owen and Max hop in a car and head to the location of the black site. On the drive over, Max gives Owen some dirt on Dawn that Owen does not want because Max lets him know this information could get you killed. He's not really interested in that, but they're stuck in a car together. It's not like he can ignore it. And the information is juicy. Dawn is stealing money from the U.S. government. Every time the U.S. government has an asset, they have to pay that asset. It's up to the case officers to let the government know about their assets. Well, Dawn is setting up fake ones, people that don't even exist. The U.S. government sends her money that she's supposed to give to these fake assets, but she just pockets it. And that is very illegal. If this were to get out, Dawn's dream job of being the station chief in Moscow wouldn't just be out the window, she would be in jail. Max says to Owen, as long as Dawn plays nice, we keep her secret. Owen's got another issue, though. His friends are getting him in trouble, not intentionally. Hannah and Terrence did head to the consulate, and they were interrogated by Violet. CIA found it really interesting that Owen's friends just happened to show up. They don't believe the fact that they just showed up. They were worried about him, and they didn't know anything. They're convinced that they did know something. But considering Hannah's parents are big lobbyists, she's not really all that concerned about it. There's nothing Violet can do to keep them, so they have to let them go. On the way back to their hotel, Hannah called up her mother, asking her to call in some favors and make sure Owen was okay. That favor was to Kevin Mills. So after giving Hannah's mother as little information as possible to put Hannah's mind at ease, Mills headed over to meet with Nyland and asked, "Why the hell am I getting calls from lobbyists about Owen Hendricks? What kind of leaky ship are you running here?" Nyland takes offense to it. He feels like this definitely isn't his fault, but he does fill Not Bob in on the operation and what happened. Not Bob's reaction, though, completely changes when he finds out that Xander Goy was the case officer who was killed. He stands up and tells Nyland, "You need to keep this away from me." And Nyland says there's no reason to think that it would get anywhere near you unless there's something you're not telling me. To which Kevin reminds Nyland not telling each other stuff is literally in our job description. My contact with Hendricks was incidental. It doesn't ever need to be mentioned. Are we clear? And a very suspicious Nyland just says, "Yep, we're clear." Hannah is relieved to get the news that Owen's okay, but her mother is demanding that she fly back to the States, move out of that apartment, and sever ties with Owen for good. She feels like Owen is a bad apple. After all, Owen is every mother's nightmare. A college-educated from Georgetown lawyer who works for the CIA. On the phone, Hannah says okay, but when it comes time to leave, she decides not to. She lets Terrence go home. What it comes down to is she's not happy, and she realized that if she just follows what her mother wants her to do, she's never going to be happy. Terrence supports her decision, but does say, "You got to figure out what's going on with you and Owen." He then heads home, and Hannah stays in Europe. Back in Germany, though, Owen and Max arrive, and they're greeted by Dawn, who ties them up. She needs to make sure that they weren't compromised first. They separate both Max and Owen, with Dawn interrogating Max. Max tells Dawn that Xander was killed for having an affair with another guy's wife, but she was the one who gave his name up. She doesn't care that Dawn knows this, because what she also knows is that Dawn wants that station chief job in Moscow. In order to get it, she needs this mission to go off without a hitch, which means she's not going to jeopardize giving Max up for Xander Goy's death. Right now, she needs Max. And as much as it pains Dawn, Dawn knows it. Dawn then goes and unties Owen and tells him that they're about to get on a call with the director at Langley and recommend that the operation continue. A couple minutes later, they're on that call. It's the CIA director, Dawn, Owen, Nyland, Amelia, Lester, and Violet. They tell the director that Goy wasn't killed because of their operation. He was just sleeping with the wrong guy's wife. And Lester confirms it. He pulled security camera footage and he found the killer. It was a woman named Nishka Lashin, and it's the same woman that approached Owen at the bar. Intel has her pegged as a Russian mob enforcer. With this new intel, the CIA director gives the okay to head to Prague and continue with the mission, buying Max's way into the Russian mob. With the meeting adjourned, Nyland has Owen stay on the phone. He wants to talk to him about this unwelcome visit he got from Kevin that day. While he didn't know about it before hearing about this, he knows who did it. He fesses up that it must have been Hannah's mother. Amelia, who happens to be in the room with Nyland, confirms that she went over to the house and woke up the roommate. Nyland is pissed and reminds them that they really need to keep their mouths shut, but for the time being, there's nothing really he can do about it. Owen then has to get ready to go to Prague with Dawn's team. They've got it all mapped out. Dave, Dawn, and the mercenaries are going to be in the bushes overseeing everything. They have an eye in the sky thanks to a drone, and they're going to be watching Max the whole time. Owen, well, his job is to stay in the van. The group gets set up, they all leave, and it's just Owen and Max in the truck together. Before Max leaves, she kisses Owen. She doesn't know if this will be the last time she sees him or not. A nervous Max then gets ready to go meet with Lev. At first, the meeting's going great, but then things go south. Owen hops out of the truck to pee when he sees some unwelcome guests driving in. He has no idea who these people are. Normally, the eye in the sky drone would see it, but it lost communication. Owen tries to get in touch with Dawn, but Dawn doesn't want to hear it. She thinks he's just wasting their time. She learns pretty quickly, though, that it's not a waste of time, because this group gets out of the truck and starts firing on the location where Lev and Max are having their meeting. When Lev hears bullets, he feels like Max betrayed him, even though she didn't. So while people are shooting on the outside, Max is shooting a lot of Lev's guys on the inside, or else she's going to get shot herself. It's a complete shit show. Owen, having no real clue on what he should be doing in this situation, just starts making his way towards the building while trying not to get shot. That's when he sees a very familiar face. One of the mercenaries is the woman from the bar. He stupidly waves at her, and then she reloads her gun and tries to shoot him, but she misses. Owen is able to take out one of the mercenaries and grab his gun and head inside, and he shows up at a great time because Max is cornered with two guys with guns, and she doesn't have a lot of ammo left. The bad news for Max is Owen is panicking. He's never shot anybody in his life, and he knows he has to pull the trigger. Now Max, who has no idea Owen is even there, she gets up to shoot one of the guys, but she gets shot herself. That's when Owen shoots the other guy, killing him. The guy that Max tried to shoot, well, she missed, and he goes after Owen, choking him. He would have killed Owen had Max not shot him in the head. Max then very calmly goes after Lev, who is bleeding out. She tells Lev, I did not betray you, but you're never going to believe that, so I have to do this, and she shoots him. The whole time, Owen was begging her not to. Owen and Max rush out of the building, get in a car, and Owen is having a full-blown panic attack. As they're escaping, Max asks what was happening, who was shooting at us? And Owen says, Nishka, to which Max is really confused on how Owen even knows who she is. And Owen tells Max, I met her in Geneva. She was outside the hotel that Xander Goy got killed at. Max reveals to Owen that she was the one who pushed the council to get her killed. Owen, though, can't concentrate. This panic attack is taking over, and he has to lay down. Once he gets his bearings together, he yells at Max to stop the car, but Max says no, and it results in Owen jumping out of a moving vehicle. This sparks a pretty big fight between the two. Owen doesn't like the fact that he killed somebody. He can't shake it. Max, who has done this many times, thinks it's normal and he'll just get over it. And he thinks that's psychotic. He yells at Max, I quit. I'm through with you. I'm through with the agency. And he starts to walk away. And Max pulls a gun on him, saying, stop. When Owen turns around, he chuckles, saying, I was so stupid. I actually thought I could save you. I thought there was a human being under there. But no, it's just a stone-cold killer. That's all it is. I mean, I actually thought that if I helped you, you could change. But you can't change. Max, who at this point is crying, admits to Owen, I need you to get back home. Please. But Owen shakes his head and says, I can't. If I don't get out now, I'll be lost forever. And you, no one can save you. He walks away, and Max can't bring herself to pull the trigger. She gets in the car, calls up Dawn, and says, we have a problem. It's the lawyer. I can track him thanks to the watch that I gave him. And Dawn says, good, because I can track you thanks to the phone you gave me. We'll meet up. As soon as she gets off the phone, a car does pull up, but it's not Dawn. It's somebody else who takes Max. As Max is making the phone call to Dawn, Owen was making a phone call to Hannah. It just so happens that Hannah is in Prague. She got a text from an unknown number saying that Owen was going to be there, so that's where she headed. They have plans to meet up, but when Owen goes there, he gets taken by somebody in a car. Hannah watches it all go down. When Owen finally comes to, he's surprised because he's tied up, and so is Max. He starts asking Max, where are we? Who took us? But she doesn't have the answers to that. Then she shockingly does get the answers when Nishka walks in. Although her actual name isn't Nishka. Her actual name is Carolina, Max's daughter, who raises her gun and shoots her mother dead. She then gets really close to Owen and asks, who are you? And what were you doing running around with my mother? And that is how Season 1 of The Recruit ends. Thank you so much for getting this point of the recap. I appreciate it. Consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. Be nice in the comments section. I hate nasty comments. They make me feel bad. I have merch if you want a shirt or a hat or a mug or a tote bag or whatever. Consider sharing it on your social media platforms. That would help me out. But just truly know I appreciate you watching.